What's good? What's good? We here.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. What up?
Welcome back. Get Your Shift Together podcast. DJ Walk, you looking nice over there.
Hey, man, I had to step the game up, man. I see all y'all got the special lighting and stuff. So, the basement is 3/4 of the way done, man. I had to sit down with the black contractor.
All right, fellas, real quick. We're going to come back to you, but today we're going to have a very important conversation. In this conversation of men in the church, we have a special guest with us, former pastor Michael B. Kelly. We're going to talk about pastors' moral falls, the distrust of pastors as a reason why many brothers don't go to church. Y'all tune in. Let's go.
To the Get Your Shift Together Men's Podcast with your host, Dr. Myron Edmonds.
Woo! Now, listen, man, I'm so fired up about today. Jay Walk, I'm ready for this. But anyway, go ahead. Kimon, take over before we go too far. Keep us in line. Kimon is the police, and he keeps me and Jay in line.
Right.
Man, what a role y'all gave me. All right, listen, y'all. First of all, welcome to the Get Your Shift Together Men's Podcast. What does that mean? That these conversations are particularly for men. Now, it's like a barbershop. The ladies will let you in here, but the brothers, there's some issues and some topics we need to discuss. So first of all, if you're watching this on Facebook, do me a favor and share it. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe. And then if you're listening, we need you to subscribe. We need you to rate and review the podcast. Listen, one of the ways that other men find the podcast is if you rate and review the podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you do that now. If you're listening to this podcast after we've recorded it, if you're live, we want your questions. We want your comments.
Hold on, Kimon. I just got to call this man out, man. I'm not going to let him get away with this. I know we got no bubbling on the block. But have you ever seen a dude when he get like a fresh haircut, how he walked by a mirror and he always looking at himself or something like that? Or he gets some new sneaks and you can always catch, dude, Jason, focus on the podcast. You can tell he's looking at himself. He's like looking at
the lighting. I'm looking at the lighting.
Dude, you're good. Stop looking at yourself. It's time to go to work now. Your stuff is good. This dude, man, I'm like, dude, what is wrong with this man?
I'm looking at the lighting, man. I want to make sure the lighting.
DJ Walk, man. Look, I'm here for it, man. This man has stepped his game up. He got a nice background.
I got the background. I got the background. I got the lighting.
This man be great.
Let me be great, man. Let me make sure that my stuff is together, man. I got the lighting now.
It's together, bro. We're live on camera, and you're obviously looking at yourself, man. You obviously. Hey, yo, dude, like this. He like.
Hey, listen. I think that's a man law. That's a man law. That's a man law.
We need to come up with our own dang on man laws.
If y'all are here, I see Cleon is here. Y'all put some in the comments. Let us know that you're here, you're watching this, that you're tuned in for this important conversation. Myron, what's this conversation going to be about today?
All right, man. Look, I'm going to show this video, and this video is going to explain what kind of happened on my social media page. This post that I put up took on a life of its own. And I just want to say, I say this jokingly, but listen, if you want to increase your followers, just do a remix video reel on Instagram and find a real hot video. Actually, when I posted this, the video wasn't even that hot yet. My gosh, dude, man, I think I have gotten literally, I'm not lying. I think I have increased my followership by at least 400 people just from showing this video. Anyway, this video actually was shared with me by a friend, and we're going to actually talk to him later. So I'm going to show this video. I'm going to show this video right now that got over 70,000 engagements and thousands of likes and hundreds of comments. All right, here we go. Let me see. Oops. Hold on. All right, I'm tripping. All right, y'all bear with me. Let me add this real quick. All right, boom. All right, here we go. Oh, shoot. You know what? It says it's not going to let me. Anyway.
Man, really?
Yeah. For whatever reason, it's not going to let me. That kind of sucks. But anyway, so what I can do is I'll summarize. Basically, mega church pastor, famed pastor, Keon Henderson, who's actually in his second marriage to Shaquille O'Neal's wife, ex-wife, I should say, his former wife, Shawnee, now Henderson, I would think, who is also a celebrity in her own right, part of Basketball Wives reality show. Anyway, dude put out a video, and in the video, he was basically saying that, we have for so long in the church, we have wanted pastors to preach grace and not preach fire and brimstone. He said, but what now that we're shifting to more preaching grace, he was like, the membership, the people in the pew, they want grace. He said, but he feel like that same energy is not given for pastors who make mistakes.
He said, so of course, grace from the pulpit, but not for the pulpit.
Grace for the pulpit. And he said that multiple times. Anyway, if y'all want to see the clip, man, y'all just go to my Instagram page and the clip is there, and follow me as well.
What's your Instagram, Myron? Just go ahead and say it.
It's Myron Live. It's Myron Live at It's Myron Live. Anyway, but so I posted that. I did a remix video, and the title of the video was Trigger Alert, Agree or Disagree, Fellas. Now, of course, anytime I say fellas, like, half the people that comment on there ain't fellas. So it was a lot of mixed reviews. And to this day, even right now, dude, I'm getting more and more engagement and comments on this. And people are split, legit. There are a lot of people who are like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the church is full of hypocrites. Pastors are held to a higher standard. And no, they're not going to get the same liberties and the same extension of mercy and grace that people in the pew should get. And then other people were saying, hey, you know what? Pastors are human just like us. Look at David, look at Solomon, look at, Abraham, so forth and so on. Anyway, I thought that would have been a great video to show, even though we can't, because it's a great segue into our conversation today. Today, we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks, we've been doing a series on men in the church, and we've been looking at reasons why men don't go to church. And if my memory serves me correct, we didn't get a chance to address, but one of the things that came out in these assessments that we have pulled from a number of sources is that one of the reasons why men don't go to church is because they don't trust preachers, period. They don't trust preachers, especially black men. Jawanja Kunjufu in his book said the same thing. And then there's been a number of other surveys. Not a lot of research has been done on this, but most of the folks are like, I don't trust the preacher. Number one, hypocrisy. Like in the black community, we talked about this a few weeks ago. We saw a preacher who was flossing his $400,000 jewelry, and the cats in the hood, a DJ rolled up on that man and, stole his stuff. And so the images of black pastors and people in the pulpit are mixed in our community, and people are polarized. But at least we're talking about men. And we're talking about today this as a reason why men don't go to church, because men, full stop, distrust leadership. They distrust pastors, see pastors. So how does that affect men, especially given the fact that so many men feel that pastors aren't real, pastors are not transparent, and pastors are fake, essentially? We have with us today, Kimon and DJ Walk. I'm honestly honored to have a good friend of mine. I'm not ashamed to say that. This is my brother, always has been my brother through thick and thin. Michael B. Kelly, former pastor of the Mount Rubidoux mega church in Riverside, California. And Mike is here today for all of our viewers. And I first have to say this, Mike, first of all, I appreciate your courage. It's rare, Kimon. You said this earlier. Yeah. Tell them what you said, Kimon. Just go. I don't have to say it. You said what you say?
I was just saying, like, we don't. So Myron will tell you a little bit about Mike's story, but we don't get opportunities a lot of times to hear from pastors who've experienced the stuff that Mike experienced, right? Pastors who make mistakes, who go through the stuff that Mike has gone through. We don't hear from them. Like, they just kind of move on. And then you'll see them show up somewhere else with your next family at the next church. And it's just like, okay, we just kind of moved on. But no one really just stops to say, let's talk through some of these hard conversations and get asked some of the hard questions that people really are wrestling with themselves. And so I think this is a very courageous time. And Mike's my brother. Appreciate you being on, Mike, here for this conversation.
And let me say this. I want to frame this again. Let me tell you what my wife said to me the other day, Kimo. And I'm going to say this. Like, my wife said, she told me to tell all of us, stop making disclaimers that this is a men's podcast. She was just like, stop telling these women it's a men's podcast. She was like, if it's a men's podcast, talk to the men. So I'm just telling y'all what my wife said. She said, y'all need to stop apologizing to the women that this is a men's podcast. Either they gonna come in the barbershop or they not gonna come in the barbershop. This is a men's podcast. That's the last time I'm gonna say it.
Listen, they gonna come in the barbershop. They just better, allow the men to have the conversation.
The men's conversation. We're not here to talk about, issues pertaining to that. I'm trying to help men win in the stuff that matter. And men find it difficult, honestly, because of people like Michael Kelly. And Mike, let's just be real. You, as a pastor, experienced a moral fall. It was very public. It happened during the pandemic while everybody was sitting down in front of their computers. And so all they had time to do was sit and to consume things that happened to you. You can go anywhere you want with this because we've invited you to be here. But Mike, talk a little bit about your journey and talk a little bit about that in the context of how you may feel that your issues with morality as a leader may have impacted, or may contribute to men, not really having respect for the church because of, maybe situations like yours. Talk to us, man. By the way, glad to have you. Welcome to the podcast, brother. Welcome.
No, man, y'all. Thank y'all for having me for this. You guys know I'll do anything for you all because I believe in the work that you all are doing. I think it's having a tremendous impact on men around the world, and so I think it's great to deal with a lot of subjects that people are a little afraid to talk about. There's a lot there, and I think I'll start here. I love when we talk about moral falls, it's only two categories of morality, right? Particularly with pastors. We've relegated morality to sexuality and finances. But any other kind of moral issues that pastors have that we see all the time, that's kind of acceptable. And so I think when you start looking at it through those lenses, there's already something kind of off with the way that we're looking at a leader. Because we'll accept, even within the realm of sexuality, you'll accept somebody struggling in area A, but you won't accept their struggle or their issue in area B. And so what you see is there's a lot of bias and subjectivity to this idea of morality, which to me says that there's a different something going on. And this morality is just kind of, this morality clause, as it were, is just this kind of, for lack of a better term, excuse for you to do what you want to do. And that's, in this case, we're talking about possibly not be engaged, in church. With that being said, clearly, I don't know if we want to spend a whole lot of time rehashing my story, but, I was involved with my, associate pastor, that didn't work out, got completely awful and ugly and horrific. And it is one of the worst experiences that I've ever gone through in my life. And at the same time, as a result, the best experience I've ever gone through at my life. And I'll talk about that as we get deeper into it later. But obviously it's very public. And what was so horrible about that, besides your children, besides your family members, besides her, because that, that was my best friend and somebody I cared about, very deeply. And my lack of character and my struggle in those areas affected and hurt her family and so many different people that were involved in this. And I hate that to death. And there's fallout. You have a worldwide ministry and all those different types of things. But here's what I'd say about that particular experience and this whole idea of men using that now when they come to church. The same dude who wrote Proverbs wrote Ecclesiastes. And I think what's very interesting, Myron, I'll never forget, you said this one day in a sermon, the Bible is not full of heroes, it's full of humans. And we are what is called, in I believe right now, the Right Now Testament. Our lives are not canonized, but angels and people, and we're going to be telling our stories just like we're telling the story of Solomon. We told the stories of David, of Abraham, and all that. And so if you're saying that because of a leader's character struggles, you cannot follow, you cannot listen. There was a comment on your page that was directed at me. If there was a person who was teaching on a sin that they had struggled with or fallen in, I would laugh. Well, then you literally have to eliminate half of the patriarchs. You can't read them. You literally cannot read anything that Solomon has to say in Proverbs, because here's a brother who slept with men and women, and he's talking to you in Proverbs about sexual morality. You halfway can't read the Bible. Paul is a literal murderer, but yet he's talking to individuals about morality and issues of morality. So I think we've got a very twisted view of leadership, and not only leadership, but grace, and how the scripture wants us to exude that grace towards people, even with higher standards.
I don't know who wants to jump in here. I want to, first of all, I appreciate, first of all, I've never seen a pastor do this. All right, I'm just saying, I'm talking about in my little circle, I have never seen a pastor, and maybe because they didn't have social media and podcast platforms, but I have personally never seen a pastor stand up, and we got a whole lot more viewers watching today, Kimon, than we've ever had. Hey, as a matter of fact, we just broke the internet. We've never had this many people watching at one time. So clearly people are interested in hear what you have to say. And you know, Mike, your influence, and you know people would be here looking, and you did not pull any punches about your responsibility. And I was anxious to hear how you do that. You've come on my men's groups and you've talked openly to them. So we kind of knew what to expect, but I appreciate the transparency. I do want to say this, and I'm going to come at you with some tough questions. And the other guys, y'all just jump in. But Mike, so I'm going to ask you, like, in light of that, there are two ways you can take this as a man, right? And you make a good point. You read the Bible, you literally have to throw the Bible away if we're going to base whether we are going to engage in church. And that's that's the point of this. Like, is it a good excuse for me to say, man, I ain't going to church because leadership, we got a bunch of leaders that are hypocrites? Then, like the apostles, all these guys, you know, that's a great point and a great argument against that. But let's just be real. Like you said, these things have hurt people. Families have been disrupted. People's faith has been challenged. And you know, people that go to church, a lot of them are not rooted in the word like you and I are. What you just said, I mean, look at the comments. You saw the comments on that. Some of the stuff people are saying, people are cussing mad on there that this guy, Keon Henderson, who is a divorcee, like, it blows my mind that they're upset that he's a divorcee and that he is saying this and that, you know, everybody's calling him out. To what extent, though, is leadership responsible for that influence, especially with men, right? Like, you know, dudes distrust institutions, black men in particular. Mm-hmm. And then when somebody like you, who people have put a lot of trust in because you came across, I'll say this, and you can parse any way you want, you come across as so genuine. And so when this happened, that would rock somebody because you came across so genuine. I mean, what responsibility do we have as leaders at all to, you know, so that we don't see more men leaving the church because we have not, as leaders, done a good job at being men of integrity, I guess I could say.
Let me tell you what's crazy about my experience, because I want to be fair with church. And when I'm talking about church, I'm not talking about institution. I'm talking about people. There were far, you know, when Elijah opened up, he said, Lord, open his eyes so he could see there are more that are with us and there were that are against us. The amount of overwhelming support that I had was far greater than anybody who was tearing me down. Now, of course, you got...
And there's some people who are mad about that. There's some people who are mad about that.
Well, let me tell you what was funny about that, though, is it was mostly men. And it was a lot of women, obviously, as well, because our church is full of women, but it was men. And here's what the men and women were saying. I never presented myself. My first Sabbath at Mount Rubidoux, I told them this. I said, I am your brother before I'm your pastor. I said, and my ultimate goal is I want all of us to be in the kingdom together. So if you see something happening in my life, I need y'all to come to me. Don't look at me and be like, oh, that's a pastor, I can't come to him. I said, y'all need to talk to me. I said, because we're in this thing together to move forward. And so as I was going through my various different struggles throughout the 11 years I was there at Mount Rubidoux, I never gave details, but I was very open and transparent with areas in my life that were not together. And so when this thing starts to happen and everything just explodes and unfolds, while it was like, dang, there were people who were saying, we were a part of his Ecclesiastes kind of journey, where he's kind of telling us along the way, vanity, vanity, all is vanity, y'all. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm struggling. I remember one sermon I preached even at Oakwood University, and I was talking about transparency in Psalms 139 and seek, search me, O Lord, and see if there's any wicked thing in me. And I told him, I said, y'all, there's wickedness in me. Like, I'm standing here knowing that as God and the Holy Spirit is searching my heart, there are things that he is trying to work through. And because I didn't give him as much permission as I should, obviously, it came out. But I think that was the difference in how different people were responding, in the sense that I didn't stand before you preaching from a place of I've got it together. I preach from a place of we're trying to figure this out together. And I'm in the middle of that. And there are some people that don't like that because they want their leaders to be picture perfect. And my thing is, that's what Jesus is for. And my job is to point you to Jesus because I'm trying to be pointed towards him as well. There's more to that, but I'm sure there's some, y'all want to jump in.
Mike, and I think what you're saying, where you talked about being honest and honest that I have struggles. I think anyone who's ever listened to you preach, yes, we hear that man say he's honest that he has struggles. A lot of times we talk about our struggles kind of like in the past tense, right? I've struggled with, but not like I am presently struggling with this. But I want to shift it a little bit to accountability. So I think for some people, I don't think the issue is my pastor can't have an issue, but it's what happens after that issue becomes public. How is it dealt with? And some of us know, like in the past, in the Black church, what we do is kind of like sweep stuff under the rug. We move a pastor here, or we, whatever. Like, just what is your thought on how the organization should address issues of accountability to, one, help the people who are following, but also to help the leader who might have a struggle that just became public? Like, the struggle didn't just happen the day that everyone found out. It was just the day it became public. So what does accountability look like in those situations to help the person who was struggling that just became public and the people who were following?
So I think you have to look at that. I think there's this organizational perspective, because let's not twist anything. It's a business, and people are worried about how is this issue going to affect the business, in this case, money and tithe and those different kinds of things going in, right? I'm going to assume, and this was, again, I mean, did I talk to every single person? No. But I will tell you this, what I know a decent amount of individuals have shared with me. Man, Pastor, if you done messed up, this was horrific, but we've been with you through this journey. For example, some of this stuff ain't new, because I've had conversations with my elders, had conversations with my board, even had town hall meetings where we talked about this stuff. Even in front of my entire church, I've had very, very open, detailed, conversations. And here was some of their thought, because I think this is up to congregations and how organizations work together. But what I know a decent amount of people from Rubidoux wanted to do is they wanted to work with me. In their eyes, they were like, your voice is not dead to us. We want you to get whatever help that you need. We would have loved for you to have, gone through whatever rehab process, if it was 6 months, even if it was a year. And then we would have loved to have been able to embrace you back, because we can hear your voice still. Your anointing has not gone soft in our eyes. But there might be another circumstance where the people are so broke and so hurt that your voice no longer rings true. When God speaks through you, they can't receive that. And so in that case, you can no longer be effective. You have to go. And every one of my leaders will tell you this throughout this entire process. This is why I told them when things either got a little bit more, when we were doing our regular check-ins, because my board and stuff, they would do some check-ins and things with me. And I told them, I said, the moment my voice no longer becomes effective, that's not something I'm going to recognize immediately. You all have to tell me, and then it's time for me to go. And that's where I think we miss. Just because someone has a fall doesn't mean their voice is going to be effective. Myron, you said it's the barbershop, so we can get in. Myron, you've had been transparent with some of your very public struggles in certain
No, I
areas.
haven't. I've not. I've not done anything.
That was on the private one. That was on the private one. Oh, my bad. I took the text thread that we were using.
No, go ahead. Yeah, no, I'm tracking.
But guess what? There are people that are like, oh no, that's my pastor. I can still hear from him. He's been open with it. He's been transparent. He's been going through his accountability. He's been, figuring things out. Now, I think people obviously look at my situation different than they do Myron's. But Myron, at the end of the day, though, there was a group of people that didn't affect them. Your conference leadership, they looked at that and said, hey, this is actually a better example of grace. This is a better example of transformation. When people see you now, they don't just see a preacher, they see the gospel in action. They see somebody who once was and is seeing this transformation. And I sometimes think that we lose the ability to see that happen in leaders. I think we allow it to happen with members and people below, but I think there's something very powerful about seeing the redemption of a leader. And I'll even go further, not in a new place, but if at all possible, in the same place. Do you know what that does to that congregation? If they're willing to do that. And I think we miss opportunities. It's not always possible, but sometimes that thought isn't even on the table.
I want to get to Jay's.
Let me say something real quick. I think what Mike is saying here, I think what's so powerful is that there's a level of, I think for men, it's like a level of ownership. You know what? I own my stuff. I did this. It wasn't they did this to me. This person did this. They did this to me. And I think for some men, that's attractive. It's like, you know what? This dude messed up. I mess up too. But he ain't going to pretend he didn't mess up. And I think for some people, there's some value to that. Just want to say
I want to say I want to get to Jay's comment, but that's exactly what I was going to say after you. Now I'm generalizing. Is that the right word? I'm generalizing right now, right? If you were to ask me, after all the time I spend with men, what men's reaction is now, this is general, but I think there are a lot of women who see Michael Kelly and they're angry because of their experiences with men. Yeah. And they look in the pulpit and they say, they see patriarchy and they see another man getting away with murder, Deshaun Watson, so forth. All of these things are triggering, and they're saying, he can get grace, but he don't need to. He don't need to have his job. I think there's another element with men, and we all know this. Men, I think the number one reason why men don't go to church is not because the pastors are making mistakes, but they feel like the church is not real. And most men are like Mike Kelly. Most men are like me. Most men are like DJ Walk. Most men are like Kimon Hines. We got a bunch of shift in our lives. we got a lot of brothers don't feel worthy to be in a space if they look in the pulpit and they see a man who they cannot relate to,
or pretending that he don't have
or
issues.
Pretending that exactly. Go ahead, DJ Walk.
I think one of the major issues that I've always talked about is when it comes to Christianity, I think a lot of people need to quit picking and choosing what we follow out, right? So everybody would get mad at Pastor Kelly, but then they'll lead a church and go lie or be envious to somebody or go glutton themselves. I think that people just need to know that pastors and leaders are humans and that we make mistakes and we may fall sometimes, but at the same time, we have to look at our own self and say, what am I doing wrong? Because I think that people are so fast to point the finger at their leaders instead of looking within themselves and saying, well, that could have been me, or I have a lot of things that I struggle with as well. But a question that I have for you, Michael, is I'm reading like a lot of comments, and I know that you stepped away from pastoring, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So
have you ever thought about going back and how your story will affect men, seeing that you can have some redemption, you can step back into leadership and be effective?
Yeah. So would I ever go back to pastoring to be employed? Absolutely not. It would take Jesus sitting right here on the couch and asking me to do that. But will I minister and work with men in churches and
I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna let that whole line of reasoning go. But go ahead, man.
No, I'm just saying, like, I feel that there's a great chapter of my life and God has opened up a new one for me. But
no, that's fair. That's fair.
So the question I got for you is, are you not going back to pastoring because you feel like the people won't accept you, or is just a personal reason, like, hey, you know, I don't want to be held at that standard because personally, I wouldn't care what the other Negroes be saying about me, okay? If you got a purpose, you got a mission, get back to it. But if you feel like you don't want to be held at that standard, then, you know, I feel you on that as well.
Well, I'll say two things. When you talk about not wanting to be held at the standard, what I think people forget is there's a higher standard that I'm held to, and that's the standard of Christ, right? Regardless of what anybody says. So that follows me wherever I go. Like, that standard is not based on, you know, my position. But there is, you know, there's a group, a church out here, Philadelphia, you know, Seventh-day Adventist church in Long Beach. And when I say them folk have embraced every ounce of me. And when I say they haven't just embraced me like, oh, come home and, you know, we just want to love you as a member. They've been like, no, like, can you preach to us, please? The Pastor David Zaid, just an amazing human being. Pastor Anthony Bogar, another amazing human being. They've said, no, we want you to minister. We believe your anointing has not left you, and we still want you to minister. As a matter of fact, last week, this is like the third or fourth time I've been with them in the last, you know, 2.5 months. Last week, I just spoke for Family Life, right? Family Life. And
hold on, bro. Hold on, man. What are you doing speaking for Family Life?
I know, right?
You're divorced. You've committed sin in the pulpit. What are you doing? Straight up.
Yeah, because, you know, I think here's the thing that we think is hilarious. Like, there are two ways you can learn from people. You can learn from people's successes, and you can learn from people's failures. And the only way you can learn from either one of those two things is if the person's being transparent. And so when I'm talking, and even on one of the last series I did, I think it was called at Rubidoux, something with the family. I remember I had a whole section, and I was talking about my failure as a husband. I was talking about how I don't communicate, you know, I didn't communicate well. I was selfish here and all that. And so for someone to say, oh, your marriage wasn't successful, so I can't hear you talk about marriage. Well, yeah, you wouldn't be able to hear me talk about marriage if I was making excuses for it and acting like nothing was going on. But I'm actually opening up a book, and I'm kind of doing what the Bible's doing. Because think about what the Bible does. It gives you stories to say, hey, when you make these decisions, these are the outcomes. And so what I'm doing now is I'm giving you a 2022 version of that, hey, when you're selfish, when you're not focused, when you're opening your mind and your heart to other things, other people, when you haven't cut things off the way that they should be cut off, these are the results. So I definitely feel that there are a group of people that want to lean into the failures that I've had, but also the successes, because I'm going to be transparent with both of them, you know, with that. And I think I do want to say this, though. Restoration, we talked about this on the thread. Y'all know we go back and forth with this. Does restoration equal employment? And that's why when people always talk about this idea of being restored and all that, I said, y'all, let's get something very clear. I have been restored in Christ. I've always been forgiven, covered by the blood. This situation was not new. This was something Jesus and I were constantly talking with. Now, I think the question is, should a person like that, do you think, still be employed? That, to me, that could be a business decision. But again, I'll circle back to something that we said. I think we miss out, depending on the standpoint of the person who's going through it, on an opportunity to really give an example from a leadership perspective of how you navigate people through grace. Can we just be real about something? My mentor, who's walked with me hand in hand through this, he is like a father to me, Henry Wright. The second chapter of his life, after what took place, is some of the greatest work of the Holy Spirit we have ever seen. Mm-hmm. I was there with it. I was there to see it firsthand as his pastor there at CPC, as my professor. If we had stopped him from employment, what would we have missed out on?
Yeah.
We would have missed out on some incredible things I think God could do. And I think we miss out on that sometimes.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I don't know if I missed the question, the answer or not. So why wouldn't you come back? Would you come back, or why wouldn't you come back, man? Isn't the first? You danced around. You danced around it good. You danced around it good.
All speak to the fire, DJ Walk.
Yeah. You danced around it good. So would you not come back because of a personal decision or because of the people?
No,
that's a good question. That's a good question, Mike.
No, like I promise you, it would have nothing to do with the people. I didn't care. There was a moment, I'm not gonna lie, that when all this was happening, I was like, oh my gosh, can I ever say anything again and doing all that? But God really had to get me to understand that, dude, you couldn't worry about people when they were talking well about you, and you can't worry about them when they're talking, poor about you. My thing is, I believe, and I'll just share, for me, even as a pastor, community work was such a huge part of my life. And so the position that God has blessed me with now allows me to do that full time without having to convince people that it has to be done. So
yeah, man, we talked about that last week, that, a lot of the importance of running the church is being active in your community, and being that face in the community where people come to when they need grace, so being that you're saying that, you have found more purpose working in the community. I'm glad to hear that, man. But don't quit ministering, man, because we need good.
No.
Yeah.
When they call, I'll come. I told the Lord, if I ever get called,
don't let these suckers run you.
I got a question, though, Mike.
Run you out of here, man.
I got a question. So, Mike, one of the things, anybody who knows you knows, man, you're a man with a lot of talents. I mean, just like anybody who's heard you speak, you're gifted. And I think, was there ever a time when you were dealing with your own struggles where you wanted to just like, man, let me pull aside and kind of get myself together, but the machinery of church kept you going, right? Because I think sometimes when we're talented, people see us in one way and we almost have to keep up performing and not take time away to deal with us, right? You're talking about men, like sometimes just our brokenness, we want to get healed. And I don't know if even this time away has been a time for you to, okay, you know what? I don't have to have everybody's pressure and expectations. Now I could focus on me. Was there ever a time in the middle though where you felt like, man, you know what? I want to just stop so I could work on me?
Yeah, and I did do that for a second. I did it one time. I should have done it one or two other times, to be honest with you. I should have. Would I say the machinery part of it? Yes. The second part, though, I think that if we stopped every time we had a struggle, you never keep going. Mm-hmm. Because listen, the stuff that we're struggling with, that pastors and people are struggling with, some of it is just acceptable to other people. But there's some pastors that are dishonest. They might not be dishonest sexually, but they're just dishonest pastors. But no one's taking a break to work on their dishonesty, right? You're just trying to work through that. My issues were relational. So obviously that involved, other people. But I do wish I had really taken a break and really got my house in order, because if I'd done that, even when things went the way they did, I think it would have landed differently, because I wouldn't have been tethered to certain things. And I would have been able to really say, okay, Mike, why are you thinking that this is something you can navigate through? And I want to be clear. I don't think that we should only take breaks because it's something sexual, right?
Well, I guess I should have taken about an 8-year break from ministry.
Right, but because here's the thing. And this is no message, y'all.
No, and I'm saying that, but the stats for pastors who struggle with just pornography. It's like, what is it, like 70%? 70% of pastors struggle with pornography, according to most recent research. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, but see that, but that's the thing though. And here's what people are surprised by. Like, everybody was like, oh, it was sex. Oh, it was that. Now there's some people who are like, well, yeah, okay. God wasn't dealing with me with the sex, y'all. That was the fruit of another root that God was dealing with me with.
Mm-hmm.
And so
of another root. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a root, and God was like, "Okay, the sex, all right, whatever, y'all do that. That's what y'all do."
I received that. Yeah.
We sensationalize. It's like, oh my goodness, and God is like, "Come on, man. Do you know how many people I've done through this whole scripture? Like, God is not losing his mind off of these patriarchs and all these people that are having sex. But I'll tell you what he is losing his mind off of. I'll tell you what you see him losing his complete mind off of when they put somebody else before him. And so what God now was dealing with me is he's like, hey, dude, like, who's before me and what is before me in your life that is allowing this fruit to manifest itself? So that could be sex. That could be whatever your fruit is. If there's something that is controlling you that much, that's getting to the place where you're not controlling you, that you're allowing it more access to you than God is, that's the thing that God wants to deal with. And I wish I'd taken some time away to deal with that.
Okay. We got 2 minutes because we know you got to go. I want to ask this last question. Here's the last question. I talk to the brothers that are watching here.
Myron,
a lot of brothers.
No, wait. I'll put in my closing thoughts. Yeah.
Okay. No, I was going to say we got a lot. And I really, honestly, I want us to land this plane with our men because we got a lot of brothers that can totally relate to you more so now, Mike, than ever before. Right. Because you done got busted, because your shift has fallen out. Right. Talk to that brother. How does that brother get through a failure like yours? That's what I want to hear you share, like in your closing thoughts. How do you move past your own F ups?
Yeah. Can I address two brothers, if that's all right, to close this out? I want to address those brothers who have a hard time with, like, let's say a person like me, which is what this whole talk was about, right? There's this incredible scene. Golly, I forgot the movie. It's a true story. Samuel Jackson, Matthew McConaughey, black girl gets killed by a bunch of white men.
Yeah, I know the movie. Yeah. A Time to Kill.
Time to Kill. Yeah.
Time to Kill. At the end of it, it's an all-white jury. And he sits there and he breaks down what happens to this black girl. And his closing statement was, now picture she was white. And he walks away. And then they convict the individuals because they saw themselves. What I want all of those brothers who are like, I could never follow this individual to do, and here's I want to share a part of my story. That was great, and forgive me if I get a little emotional. Aside from everything else, I got two girls at home. We're women now. And they saw, even though they've been a part of a lot of this, and I've had conversations with them, they saw their father mess up bad. To the point where my youngest, when I told her the day I got let go, she said, Dad, I knew this was coming. I just wish you would have done better and do better going forward. But they never wanted me to stop being their father. And so to you brothers who are like, when I see dudes and I don't want to do that, can you imagine if one day you fall in any way, or your kids, and they see our mess ups, and they might not be quote unquote as big as mine, but they're big to your children, whether that's how you're treating your wife, whether that's the kind of career that you've had, whether you're a good provider, whatever it is, they see that you are not perfect. And can you imagine if the same attitude that you have towards leaders, your children had towards you? If they're like, I can't hear from you. You can't parent me. I don't want you in my life. I'm not going to be in this home. I'm not going to be in this house. And I thank God every day that I had children that said, oh, you messed up, but you are still my daddy. And so one of the greatest experiences that I have ever had in my life is my kids have seen me at 0, but they have seen God bring me back and place me in my purpose, place me in my passion, give me resources that can take care of all the issues that, financial, all those different kinds of things. And they've seen the power of God work and his mercy and his grace. But what I love about it is they didn't wait for the victory to still hold on to me and to still be my dad. So brothers, I want you to place yourself in my position, and how would you want your children to respond to you? That's how you should be responding, I think, to other people and other leaders. The second group of men who you're going through what I've gone through, the first thing I want you to understand is that God gets sin. We make a huge deal out of it. And I don't want to say it to belittle it, but we make it such a big deal that we don't think we can ever come back from it. And it cripples us. It makes us think like whatever. And God is like, whoa, hold up. What the power of sin can do, I've already taken care of. Like, that's good. So you fell. You fell? Okay, cool. God spends more time focusing on the get up than the fall. And part of what the get up is understanding who you are, what the character flaws were, where the trigger points were, where the holes were. But you've got to get over what people think. You've got to get over embarrassment. And this is crazy. I know this is crazy. And some people think it's arrogance, but it's not. You've got to have that David kind of boldness that says clearly, oh yeah, I messed up, but I'm his dude. Like, no. I'm his dude. And I'm going to walk like I'm his dude. And what you call arrogance, I call relationship. Because I've been accountable. I've had my Psalm 51 moment, and I am okay to walk in confidence. That's why, of course, I'm going to preach. Of course, I'm still going to teach. Of course, I'm still going to parent my children because I'm still his dude. You are still his dude. You are God's guy. Like, he does not think any less of you. He does not think any poorly of you. He is like, no, you're my dude. And you so much of my dude, I'm going to show you by walking with you. The thing, though, that you have to do is you have to allow him to get into those pain points. And sometimes it's just going to be you and the Holy Spirit getting into those pain points. And sometimes he's going to place some incredible people in your life to help you get through those pain points. But you can't make excuses. And a lot of times we're making excuses because we're trying to be right in other people's eyes. It doesn't matter what these folk are thinking. It matters what you need to just get revealed and to just get out. You guys talk about this on the show. If it's therapy, go get therapy. Get you accountability group. I know that's what the winning circle and all that's all about. But I think the most important thing for you to remember is you are God's dude. And he is trying to, the scripture is so full of texts that show people who have fallen and have just made this tremendous comeback. Revelation tells us this: we are not just saved by the blood of the Lamb, but by the word of our testimony. And this testimony, I think, is what's going to make everything powerful. So that's what I would say to the brothers, man. And it's all good because it's going to come. And some of our falls are more public than others. Let's be real, y'all. Can we just be real? It's just because I'm public. But there are folk that are going through all kinds of stuff that we're not going to find out till we hear their story on the other side. And it won't be salacious anymore because when we hear the countless stories of how God redeemed, we're going to be like, oh, that was that. Oh, that was that. So let's testify now. Let's testify now.
Oh, man, bro. Man, you gotta have me crying out here. I saw Kimon put his I saw him over there struggling. His lips was quivering, bro. Yo, that was powerful. Let's just Mike, real quick.
Thank you, Mike.
The guys in the pot, DJ Walk, and he just quick closing thoughts, 15 seconds. I'm gonna come to you, Kimon, and then we're just gonna have a quick prayer. I think we need to pray, man. We need an appeal after this. This has been life changing. We ain't gonna work, and then we're gonna go right to the end of this podcast. Go ahead, DJ Walk, Kimon, and then I'll end this thing. Mike, tremendous. Go ahead, DJ Walk. Your thoughts.
Just short and sweet, man. I really commend your courage, man. I really want you to keep on doing your thing, man. You're very powerful, man. Very insightful. Seem like you've touched a lot of people in your community, a lot of brothers, man. Just keep on doing your thing, and I really commend your courage, bro.
Mike, thank you, man. You helped a lot of brothers today, including this brother right here. Love you, man.
Yeah, Mike, love you, bro. This was incredible. Yeah, I really don't have no words. I'm speechless right now. There were so many, and I just have to say, just respect to this guy for standing in front of this camera, taking ownership, talking about his journey. This is what we're all about on the Get Your S.H.I.F.T. Together Men's podcast. Vulnerability is the first step to breakthrough. And man, we're seeing breakthrough happen in your life, Mike. We love you, man. Listen, y'all, do us a favor, subscribe to the podcast. You can hear the full podcast. It'll be on YouTube in the next week or so. In the meantime, listen, get your shift together. Let's win in what matters. Out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Get Your Shift Together Men's Podcast. For more information, please visit our website, menswinningscircle.com. That is, menswinningscircle.com. Let's win in the things that matter.